Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
Welcome to Commander's Horn episode 113. We are live for the first podcast after Crimson Curse's launch. I'm joined by three pro players, three fellow team members on TLG to talk about everything. I mean, really, where do we even start? We're going to try to pick three good topics to talk about with you guys, and we're going to dive into it right now on this episode of Commander's Horn. Whoops. There we go. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
KingChezz, Spyro, and Quillandlance joining me today to talk about Crimson Curse and all the things that it has brought with it. We're going to try to... I feel like this is going to be a very organic conversation because just even in the pre-podcast, in the few moments where I was setting up the video, we already talked in depth about the Eridan change, and we already talked about... And I think I'm fine just jumping right into something like that. But I just wanted to say welcome to everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody who supports us at patreon.com/commandershorn. You'll be able to find these videos on YouTube as well at McBeard, where you can find all my content, and we're streaming right now live at twitch.tv/McBeard. And I'm just going to get that all out of the way so we can just start chatting. So the first person I'd like to welcome to the podcast, KingChezz, congratulations on your qualification to Challenger number 5. Awesome job, man. We're going to be able to raise a glass whenever this occurs. The date is still to be determined, as are many of the challengers, but you can sit comfortably in your throne. How does it feel, King?
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me first and foremost. And I mean, every time somebody says congratulations, I get a huge smile on my face. It's a bit surreal. It was definitely my biggest accomplishment so far in Gwent, and a really, really good day for me. I would say it was a surprise, but I actually went in, this is the most nervous I've ever been for a qualifier, because I felt like I had a genuine chance of qualifying. I felt like I was in really, really, really good shape for it. And it's still a bit of a surprise to make it, even when you know you're playing really well, because like there was so many other good players. But yeah, really, really, really pleased.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And that meta is already gone forever. Like we could talk, and I want to talk to you in depth about the whole thing, but I mean, really, there's so many factors that really won't really apply to the current world that we're in, as the expansion just dropped on Thursday. Also, I wanted to call out the fact that this is an international collection of opinions, as we are represented in 4 different countries, an international curse words cast, including Spyro for the first time. Thanks so much for joining us. Now we have spoken briefly when we were both on TLG Faction Chat, where we talked about Northern Realms, and I'm sure you had a chance to dip into some Northern Realms. Welcome, Spiro. Sorry, it's pronounced Spiro. One of the things you said in my chat the other day is that you were happy that I knew how to pronounce your name, even though I forget sometimes.
Yeah, must get it wrong.
So how are things? Talk to me. Tell me about the trials and tribulations of playing Gwent and trying to be competitive in a country, or at least a city, that has the power go off all the time.
Well, it's luckily the situation's been stabilized now. The load shedding has subsided. We had like issues with some generators or something broke down, and we had like 2 weeks where we had constant power outages of 2 hours at a time for about 3 times a day. But luckily now it's now gone. Hopefully it stays the way it is now, and we don't have any more issues.
Was there an issue? Was there a
Gwent.
worry that you would not be able to participate in Challenger qualifiers due to this?
Yeah, I was actually very worried about that, because I didn't actually participate in this qualifier because I didn't play the last season of Open Beta Gwent Pro Ladder, so I couldn't participate in this. But for the upcoming qualifier, I was worried that it would still be an issue with the power, but luckily it's sorted now, so I will be able to compete with that as long as it stays the same as it is
right
now.
On. And welcome back to the program,
Yeah.
Quillandlance. Well, welcome back as well to KingChezz. You've both been on the show before, but Quill, it's great to have you back again. Quill, you were the first person that was like, hey, if you're looking for somebody to talk about the expansion, I'm in. And you stream pretty regularly, and you've been probably digging into the expansion as well. How's it been treating you out there, and how's the community been finding it?
It's been great. I mean, I've been seeing tons of old names come back. I feel like a lot of people are loving it so far. Again, it's always early for me to kind of judge these things, as I like to sit and wait and sit on it for a little bit. I like to sink my teeth into each faction day by day instead of going playing like every leader in the
Mm.
same day, just so I can get like um, a good full judgment on it. I like to take my time and not really rush into things, but I'm loving it so far.
Yeah, I'm the same. I just had a couple of ideas I just wanted to like mess around with, and people are already telling me that there's like crazy stuff you can do with that last higher vampire, and that Regis bloodlust is crazy as well, and like I'm just I didn't even encounter a higher vampire. I played like 15 games yesterday because I was cutting a lot of videos as well. But I imagine if I played longer, I would see these things that people are talking about. So I just wanted to point something out. I am dealing with a constant issue where my camera and my audio look fine on the stream, but everything else I'm doing, playing Gwent or my guests talking, have some sort of desync. And even on my screen right now, everything looks fine, but in my recordings, there is an issue. I'm not sure how to fix it, and I'm very sorry for the people who are watching. And when I finally post this video, I might just desync myself so everybody else looks and sounds normal. I might just take that bullet. So sorry again to everybody watching, and I'm going to be trying to figure out how to fix this in the future. But let's talk. So the first thing I wanted to jump into is the fact that we got a lot of new cards, 100 new cards, over 100 new cards specifically, and lots of new effects and lots of new keywords and lots of new ways to play. But still, I think one of the biggest things is new leaders, and how a new leader can really kind of unlock potential of old cards and also give relevance to new cards, because that's kind of, they're designed in the same set. And I feel like some leaders are doing this better than others. I think that Svalbard has done a lot for SK's card pool in general, and I think that we're really scratching the surface on the Self Wound Bronze Core, and how Svalbard Priest is so awesome, and it's great to have that effect back in the game. But I want to just go around the horn and just talk about the leaders that you have had enjoyment playing. It could be an old leader or a new leader, and just kind of how those new cards have helped you, or what you've seen. I want this to be a really organic conversation, but because we've probably already seen some pretty crazy stuff. KingChezz, how is your first day with Crimson Curse been?
Yeah, so I mean, like the first thing I want to do is try and make Nilfgaard great again, right? I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I'm mainly I was an NG player for a long time. Like obviously, as a pro player, you have to play all factions, but NG's always been close to my heart ever since Nilfgaard Soldiers. And yeah, I had to go with Nilfgaard. I spent a good hour or so in the deck builder trying to build stuff, and honestly, I was really disappointed. The three decks I built, I think there was only like three or four new Nilfgaard cards that were in the decks that I built, and none of them were like particularly good. They were just like very slight upgrades. The new leader seems really good. I think the new leader might be the best Nilfgaard leader. Could very well be the best Nilfgaard leader, and does have some synergy with the other cards. But Nilfgaard felt a little sad to me. But then I went over to scoia'tael. I didn't actually try the new leader. I carried on with Bruva, but there's some really awesome tools in scoia'tael that have been added. Some really nice cards. With the addition of some new thinning tools in the bronze package, because I think thinning's really key right now with witches being nerfed. So like some more musty units was quite nice, but also the gold cards, they got some really cool gold cards with the new hand buff card, the new like there's two new hand buff cards to a certain extent, right? You've got the Dryad woman who deals 2 damage and then buffs your hand by 2 if you kill something. Yeah. That card's awesome. Pretty cool. Yeah, she's really cool. And then the Willow card is another hand buff card, right? It's like like Sheldon, just instead of damage,
slowed in
right?
Skags. Yeah, you can play him first. You can play it early instead of playing it late.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
it's the Ragnarok really cool. To the Dragon Stream. It's like Weeping Willow to Sheldon Skags. It's like the thing you can play early or the thing you can play late. It's kind of a cool foil, those two cards.
Exactly, and it really helps because like consistency is a little lower now. So having 2 cards that you can hand that you want to hand buff is really nice in that deck. They also got that new botchling kind of card,
The
that
boar.
hog
Oh,
thing or whatever it is, boar.
That card kind of scares me because whenever I see it, I really just don't know what to do about it because it just like the
Yeah,
botchling, it heals itself and it's like just a constant nuisance.
exactly.
It's just one of the. It's like a better. There's a lot of cards in the game that are really good candidates for lock, but lock is easier to remove now. So, because Purify is around, right? Queen of the Night is just a good monsters card that has Purify on it. So it's like
Yeah.
unlock or get like decent value and synergy with a bunch of other cards. Like it's really, really easy to run Purify. And Nilfgaard Assimilate, I mean, if that's your thing or not, but you definitely have a lot of access to it, just like Nilfgaard has that access to lock in its lower bronze package as well. But I will say that Harmony, the scoia'tael stuff that I have played have just been, it's just so great. There's so many little choices you can make in building a deck if you care about Harmony. It's like, was my dwarf going to be, are they going to be the big plays? Is it going to be the smaller plays? Am I going to go hand buff? I feel like dwarves don't have a lot of options at like the lower bronze, whereas elves and dryads now have a lot of options. But I just think that scoia'tael, like Nilfgaard got some cool stuff, but when you compare it to scoia'tael just got like, here you go. All these cards are great. Take them. Like I felt like Northern Realms as well got that. Spiro, do you feel the same about Nilfgaard? And I feel like spies are a little bit better as well. Like it seems like because they got the new spy. But have you felt like well, I mean, just talk to me about your experience. Like where did you start and how have you felt?
Well, I started the first thing I wanted to try out Skellige because I really for me, I'm not sure. Skellige and Nilfgaard, I mean not Nilfgaard, sorry. Skellige and Monsters are my 2 like favorite factions, and I really was when I saw Svalbard initially, the first thing that jumped to my mind was like greatswords because I used to love greatswords back in the day, and there is a certain interaction between the Protector and I think it's called Svalbard Priest or something.
Great.
That is a mechanic very similar to what we had back in the day with greatswords thing. Obviously, instead of boosting it, I mean, instead of strengthening.
Well, no, Brockvar Hunters used to be in the game, and they used to boost on adjacent units' damage, and then they removed that from the Brockvar Hunter, and everybody was very sad.
Yeah.
So it's like we have it back
now. It's similar to that, but without the strengthening instead of boosting now, which obviously is much more fair because you can't get those in crazy. It doesn't play for carryover anymore, but it's good value in the long run, and I tried it out, and it's very strong. Like in a long run, Svalbard can be pretty nuts because you can it snowballs. You can get like 6 points a turn quite easily if your engines go undisrupted, and it feels very good. But the thing is, the meta at the moment, people seem to dry pass a lot in round 2, and that obviously helps these long round decks. I'm not sure how viable they'll be once people start realizing what deck you're supposed to bleed, what deck's supposed to dry pass. Once people realize those kind of things, I feel like some of these decks might become a little bit weaker. But it's very interesting to see the kinds of interactions and synergies that you can now create with all these new leaders and cards that interact quite nicely together.
This is the last thing I want to say about Svalbard, because I feel like we have been kind of sort of talking about Svalbard for the last little bit. But the thing about Svalbard is that he has long round potential in that those pings are all utility pings that get you points and activate stuff like your Shield Maidens and activate your Berserk. But he's also got really short round potential. I lost to 2 Svalbard just because they saved all their Svalbard until the last play, and then they play Vildkarl, ping, 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 boom, 12-point bear, and then they use their other 2 pings to like activate some other thing that's like you go into the long round or the short round. Feels very much like Gurnakora in that way that they're sort of threatening, but also very, very different in gameplay. I think Svalbard is just super, super cool. I mean, really cool card.
You can also do things like you can play Nut and Olaf for like a big amount of points in K-Nut, and then I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a silent K or not. I actually have no idea. But yeah, you can play him onto Olaf for a mass amount of points, and then you can combat with your leader ability. So you can play K-Nut onto the Olaf, and then you can use like 3 pings of leader to make Olaf go all the way down to 1, and then you can boost Olaf up. And also you can also combat that with Yuta. Then you can play Yuta for the full strength because Olaf is now at like 20 points. And then Yuta comes down to 12 because your Olaf is already so tall. So you do have short round potential with that as well, which is obviously very key for a deck to have good long round and short round plans.
There's also something else I want to explore because the champion of Svalbard can kill allied units. It's like Skellige Consume, because if you put all the beasts in the graveyard, you can actually activate your Beastmasters in round 3 as well. It's like there's actually like a Skellige Consume list that I would love to just see if it's at least fun. But that's Svalbard. Quill, what have you been playing? What did you start off with? I always think of you as a Northern Realms player for some reason, just because that's just the first thing that I saw you ever play. And the lance is kind of like a noble sort of Northern Realmsy type thing. But did you try Calanth out?
Yeah, and I'm always wearing blue
You're
on
always
these shows
wearing
too.
blue?
I didn't try Calanth. I didn't like her ability too much. I felt like she was like, if I want to play an ability like that, I just play
Yeah,
Hensel,
it's
you know,
combo,
because he
right?
gives the zeal and then the 4 points. Yeah. Um, Plus, it gives me some good choice in what I pull. Current Calanth just kind of grabs a random card from your deck, and you know it could be awful, and then just puts it in your hand. So I didn't really care for her ability too much. So I tried seeing if I could edit my Hensel list from last patch a little bit. Then I tried, you know, playing around shields in the deck builder. Nothing ever like really got to actual ranked. Because I just eventually went on to Unseen Elder, which is probably my second favorite leader, and trying to make him work again because I loved him. He just got kind of eclipsed last patch by Grand
Yeah,
Cora
it's
and
always
all
good,
her.
but just kind of like just saw less play, and like I've seen great Unseen Elder lists, and I've had great times with that leader. It surprised me that it was just so underplayed.
Yeah, because with Unseen Elder you can go very controlly if you really want to with Rot Fiends and all those Cyclopses. You can do a lot to their side of the board, which is what the type of gameplay that I really liked, which is why I shied away from like the NR shields and just kept going back to like my Hensel, let's destroy everything gameplay.
Yeah. I feel like Meave and the mages is actually, they're pretty cool too. There's like a cool Cintern list because those spellweavers are nasty engines and they're 1 point stronger than the Arbalest. So you can protect them at 5. You can give them extra charges with the other mages. Damn Sorceress is already good. So it's like a different package, the different charge building package, but feels like it actually has a stronger centerpiece as opposed to having maybe 2 smaller pieces in the Lyrian Cavalry and the Lyrian Arbalest. I want to explore that a little bit more. I've heard that some of the decks using some of these new Cintron cards are quite strong. Personally,
yeah, I really like the Citrian Spellweaver. Was
such
it
a key card?
Because he's just a better Arbalist.
Feels like it.
In a lot of ways. And you get a buff on him to 5, and then that's really he's sticking for a while unless they have a lock. So I like they added another kind of a good engine tool for mages. I'd really like to see mages become this kind of stronger archetype.
Well, there's enough mages and enough charge-based mages that I feel like you could even shoop it up. Like even the Banard Tutor is funny because you can give charges to the mage and then protect it with its own charges. Plus, it gives it a charge when you play it because it's also a mage. Like there's just like a lot of like cool charge interactions that just kind of link up the mages and keep them separate from the machines. And I think that they really did a good job feeling like machines feel different than mages, but they're both like the same mechanic, like charge-based mechanics. So I think it's separate enough. I don't know if you guys agree that they're different enough, but I actually feel like 2 completely separate groups of cards kind of form up to create this different, like they're both different flows. I'm going to throw that out there for general conversation, but I also want to throw another important topic out. Aridin was changed in a big way. Aridin lost his ability to give immune to the target that he's buffing. So he still buffs. He got a provision increase as well. He and Woodland Spirit now are the highest provision cap leaders at 16. But Aridin now only gives a shield to his target and not immunity. KingChezz, I wanted to ask you first. We talked about this a little bit pre-podcast. You did very, very well in the Challenger qualifiers, attracting a lot of bans with Aridin Slizzard, which really abused the immunity aspect of Aridin's ability. How do you feel about this change?
Yeah, so we spoke about this off cam. Obviously, I'm a little sad that I'll never be able to play Slizzard again, but overall, I think it's definitely a change that was necessary. I'm glad to see it. I think Aridin's ability was very, very, very unhealthy for the game, and I don't think it was intended, right? I don't think they wanted it to be the way it is. I don't think they ever envisaged a world where Aridin would make every single unit you ever play immune, right? With the Slizzard, that wasn't something that they wanted to be in the game, and I think immunity. I think this whole patch has been a shine away from immunity. Paulie got it taken away as well. And this immunity's been dialed back, and I think we'll see that going forward because I think immunity is bad for the game. As far as Aridin's new ability goes, we talked about this off cam. I think it's more of like a placeholder ability. I'd be surprised to see this ability on Aridin in 6 to 12 months time. because there's lots of cards that can give shields. It feels a little underwhelming for one of the major leaders in the game, one of the more iconic leaders, to just give a shield, which a lot of cards can do right now. So I'd be surprised to see it stay the same. But at the moment, I think it's fine. I think it's better than what it was. I think it's more healthy. And they did up his provision by 1. They gave him 1 extra point on his boost. So like he got kind of a little bit extra, but I don't think you'll see a lot of Eridan for the time
They give
being.
a point
anyway.
back to his boost, right? Wasn't it originally 4, and then it went down to 3, and then it went back up to 4?
Yeah. Then it went down. Yeah, they've given it back.
So the thing about Eridan is like it's interesting. You look at it like it could be placeholder, but I also the way I see it is that I do feel like the change is drastic, right? He's obviously a far worse card because that ability was so powerful, but he's still filling that role of protecting a unit, and that's what he was doing before. And it seems like a lot of people were really hung up about the idea of there being a leader that gives shields. And even though Quillandlance was not that leader, Eridan ended up being that leader. Surprise. So I think that no one saw that coming. I thought that was kind of funny. But at the same time, because he boosts a unit up, he works with Caranthir, another Wild Hunt unit, plus he's bringing the strength of a unit up, so he kind of cares about dominance. So it doesn't seem like what he's doing is out of the ordinary for the cards that I always expected would work with Eridan. And Imlerith obviously is still probably fine, and Keltullus. Like, if you can protect these cards, they are going to get you they're going to get you extra value. It's just Eridan has always been the leader that, I need to bleed this leader to win. And I don't think this changes. And I think he's actually probably easier to bleed now because his ability is weaker. So I'm gonna throw it over to Spiro, because this is a big change that really surprised people. Lost in like Detlef's reveal and lost in the haze of the new expansion, Eridan kind of just slipped in there. What did you think when you saw Eridan for the first time, Spiro?
I feel like the old strategies that were revolved around Eridan are no longer viable with him. However, there could potentially be new strategies. Unfortunately, this current card pool, I don't think they quite exist. But if in a future world where monsters ever gets a dueling card, Eridan's leader ability will become
Careful
insane.
what you wish for.
If a card like Selkirk,
Careful what you wish for, Imlerith Sabbath. It's just
yeah. If you ever get a card with like for example, Prince Anais or Selkirk in Eridan, you boost him by 4. Let's just pretend in a world right now where Selkirk is a monster card. You boost Selkirk by 4, he goes to 9 points, and then you give him a shield. That means whatever that Selkirk hits first, when it hits back, the damage gets negated. So suddenly Selkirk gets basically deals for double damage, which is like 1 billion points, which could be it could be crazy if monsters ever get a dueling card. In the current card pool, however, I think its leader ability is somewhat underwhelming. There's not really that much to protect. That's like you can protect, I guess, Montauk, but I mean you can still get moved, which obviously is the biggest counter, and you can protect something like Sabbath for 1 hit of damage, but 2 hits will obviously just kill it. But I think in the current set of card pools, it's underwhelming. But in future set of card pools, if they ever give monsters a dueling ability card, Eridan could actually be pretty insane leader.
It's interesting because you say that like if Selkirk with a monster card, Selkirk would deal in with double damage, it would be crazy. But I feel like Sheldon Skaggs is already doing that. Like there's a top end on what these cards, even the cards that double dip on value, usually are only dipping there is a ceiling on it. Like even the Weeping Willow double dips, but its ceiling is how many turns it can actually proc, and Sheldon's ceiling is what it can actually hit. And Leo and Geralt can kill anything above 8, so it's almost like the idea that a unit could kill another unit no matter how big it is. The problem with Immune Slizzard is that there's like almost no way to do that outside of playing Erden, or because that's the only thing that could possibly reset the card without targeting it. But the fact that it was a gigantic unit wasn't the scariest thing about it, I think, because there are so many cards that just completely killed giant units.
It was just the fact that it like bricked all your reactive cards. So you have to either play a full-on proactive deck, or else you have no chance, because half your cards become bricks against Alt Slizzard, because you just can't damage anything. That was where it got all its value, was just bricking your opponent's cards so much.
That is true. Like your Karnax can't hit anything, and that is true, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Quill, I'll pass this to you. If you want to talk about Eridan, that's cool. But if you wanted to talk about any of the other leaders that you've seen, we haven't really talked about Detlef or Dana. We've talked a little bit about Anna. We'll talk about Anna, though. When it comes back to me, I will just tell you that I think Anna is a perfect Nilfgaard leader in all that she does. But Quill, where are you at right now with the new leaders, and how did you feel about Eridan's change? If you felt strongly about it.
Well, with Eridan's change, they kind of are saying, you know, if you compare it to Woodland Spirit, that the shield is worth 4 points, right? Four points roughly, just because Woodland Spirit's worth 8. They both have the same provisions, and he boosts by 4. But like, so you boost a unit by 4, it doesn't stop Geralt. It doesn't stop cards like Lael. It doesn't stop. You know, it just plays right into them. And I don't know. I just don't see it really being too useful of an ability, kind of like what has already been said. But that's my last bit. I'll touch on that with. Um, as far as new leaders, I do think Detlef is probably the strongest out of the new leaders, from what I've seen. You know, he offers control. He spawns vampires, offers that vampire synergy.
He preys on weakness. He preys on weakness. How good is that? Like your units at 2 are like a liability for you. I think that's such a great little piece there.
Yeah, and he turns like just normal, because monsters have so many bronzes that just deal 2-3 damage. He turns those into just like engine killing machines, right? Because you deal 3 damage, you can kill any 5 engine out there, like Blaze, Rockfist, and it works so well with that. And I kind of want to build a nice control list around that.
Yeah, they give a lot of Deathblow to scoia'tael and monsters, and they also have Ethna and now Detlef kind of in that repertoire of being able to make those Deathblows much better. Like even Gregoire de Gorgon is seeing like play an Ethna, I believe, because it's so easy to get a unit to 1 and trigger that Deathblow and just be able to close with that 11-point play. Yeah. The other thing about...
Yeah. Gregor seems very powerful. Gregor, I've seen a lot of lists. A lot of lists are running Gregor, actually, especially in Nilfgaard because of the synergy with spies. But Gregor is actually a very powerful ability, and he gets a shield on top of that. So
you can't just you can't just dig into that pile of points with any ping.
Yeah, it's a very strong card. Like you can't just like Cyclops it or something because of the shield. So it's a very strong card in certain decks. You have to obviously have a way to reliably be able to line up the ones. Obviously, it's not suitable for all decks, but in the decks that he does fit in, he fits very well in.
I feel like now we're talking a lot about shields now because we were talking about Eridan, and I think that coming from, I'm not sure how far back everybody dates at playing, but I don't know if you remember Quen. But Quen was originally a card and an ability that was able to protect every engine in your deck because you could kind of cast it on your hand, and then all of those engines were boosted and also protected from, like, with the shield effect. scoia'tael was able to do this because their engines, it was really, really good for their engines to get protected because, Ithlin could cast it twice as well, so you play 2 Quens and your entire hand had shields on it. So there was like, obviously we've had the good, we've seen the hard parts of Quen, and now the way Quill was talking about the shield, just it's not really that powerful. I think that I was sure that shield feels meta, right? There's like sometimes shield does not feel great, and sometimes shield feels like it's really annoying. It's like I just want to. Like I can only ping, like I've got a 4 ping in my hand. My opponent has a bunch of 1s and like a giant unit, but that unit has shield. And I feel like I'm just not going to get my value either way. So the shield is still getting like an average amount of value in what it's limiting if your opponent has to like do something to a body that doesn't get full value on it. You're just reducing the amount of viable targets for pings and such. So I think that it's getting more value than people think, but I also think that it's less impactful than I thought it would be. But we're still on day 1. I don't know. How do you guys feel about shields? That's what we're going to talk about now. We've already been talking about it, but I'm going to throw it to King first, and then you guys just pass it back and forth, honestly, if you guys want to talk about how strong you think shields are. King, you can lead it off.
All right. Well, I actually have a funny story with shields. Like my first game or second game of Pro Ladder today was against Sir Pumpkin, and he was running a shield heavy NR deck, right? And I was running trying to build my my NR dwarf hand buff dwarf with my crushing traps, right? And we get into round 3, and he ends up stacking all his units on his back row, and he had about 6 or 7 units on his back row. But my crushing trap hit for 1 point because they were just all shielded up, and like I can't do anything because I wasn't running Milan or anything to ping those shields off, right? So my crushing trap was pretty useless. And I think that there, like you said, there is some serious value to be had with shields. That's obviously a counter to the crushing trap, right? There's the shield and the whatnot. Another great example was Spiro made with dueling cards. So if you can manage to get a shield onto those dueling cards, you can pretty much kill whatever you want.
Very realistic with the prince,
so
now, right? And with the new cards that give shields.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're probably already seeing this. They have.
I saw it happen to me.
For sure. So So you've got some really cool things you can do with shields. However, at the same time, shields seem like they're quite highly costed. At least in some cards, like they've costed it quite high. And they don't actually put points on the board, right? So if you queue into a matchup where they're not actually damaging you, or they're not trying to, the shields don't matter to them, they have like maybe just a one random ping. I think the shield, if it's taking a one random ping, isn't really worth it. If they are able to knock it off without committing 4 damage, for example, it kind of negates the effectiveness of shield. But I think that's what it needs, right? It shouldn't be super OP, but it should have a place. And I think they've done a really, really good job with shields. I'm really really impressed with the whole mechanic
cards
of
like
shields.
Spellweaver
really
and
like
cards like Arbalest really play well with shields because they have like the pings, right? Every ping is a separate instance of damage. So it feels like and like you said, Mullane, like if you had Mullane, you would have knocked 4 shields off, and then your Crushing Trap would have got the value you were probably looking for.
Exactly.
However, it would have also reduced your Mullane by 4, so it's still hitting you a little bit.
Sure.
So it's interesting. I really like it. Spiro, how do you feel about like shields in the meta so far? And what's the biggest thing you lost to a shielded duel card? Because it sounds like you have some unresolved issues.
I think I played the Champion of Svalbard.
Yeah.
And I had this whole like strategy set where I was gonna damage him all the way down to like 1, and then eat something of mine, and then that just went throughout the window and someone played. I think it was Prince and Says, and then he used new Northern Realms leader bullet, the one that plays a card from your hand, and then he gave it shield on the same turn.
Queen of Dahlia.
Just instantly wiped.
Plays a shield.
Yeah, Queen of Dahlia. Then he just,
sorry. It's a bronze card though. Adalia does so.
No, he played in the same turn. He plays Prince and Says, and then he played a shield with his leader ability on the same turn. Just wiped my. Yeah, then he wiped my Svalbard right off the board and like ruined my whole strategy.
Yeah, and then they have a lot of ways to do that, right? Cintron Artificer is like an easy Zeal shield.
Yeah, there's plenty of other ways as well.
And the Watchman is also a Zealable shield as well, but I think Northern Realms just plays the Artificer in that case. It's just better for them. Quillandlance, you feel like the shield has not been that strong. Have the players convinced you, have changed your mind, or I think we're...
I mean, I think in certain instances it can be very strong. One way of getting rid of shield that I don't think a lot of people have touched on is bleed. Mm-hmm. Bleed actually gets rid of shield, which is really nice.
Yeah, we can talk about as well.
Yeah. So the bleed kind of every turn, like, so I was playing against the guy that if you give a shield, he boosts himself by 2 every turn.
Wyndham I'm assuming Henry's.
And I didn't have a lock. I didn't have anything else, so I used Queen of the Night to go put bleed on him, and then that stripped the shield off at the end of every turn. So it allowed me to eventually kill him with a crone, which was probably the most effective way outside of a lock to deal with his shield out there. Because every turn they can't even give him a shield at that point.
It's awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can keep talking about shield. This transitions nicely into vitality and bleed, because it's really interesting where bleed feels like kind of like a personalized weather effect on the unit of your choice, and it strips shield. And of course, it's interesting how vitality kind of elegantly cancels bleed out. Like if a unit has 5 bleed and you give it 4 vitality, it now has 1 bleed. If you didn't see this interaction, I actually thought, I wasn't sure how they were going to do it, like, because if a unit is taking damage every turn and like maybe something else cares about that, like the protector, and you wanted to put vitality on it as well if there was a situation, so it took damage and boosted at the same time, that's not actually happening. And I think that's fine. I think that it's kind of like a substat, right? It's like it's always showing the potential like ending spot for that unit. But it has the added effect of always triggering the boost effects and always triggering these on damage effects, like shield. So I think vitality and bleed are... I've seen a lot of effects. Like I feel like the Weeping Willow is quite good, but very good in the way that Sheldon Skaggs isn't. But you could play it nice and early because it's something that's just going to start. It's just a point generating machine that, if not interacted with, will just get the full potential of the double dip points. And it's just the vitality needs to be stripped, but it's already shielded as well. And it's already probably like you already have the carryover value of the hand buff in the first place. So where Sheldon Skaggs can't get value, the Weeping Willow always can. And I feel like it's kind of cool that the vitality caps its total value based on when you can play it. I felt like scoia'tael had a lot of stuff. Like, I have so many things I need to play early. I have Harmony engines. I have the Mahakam Defenders. I've got my Matrons. Maybe I'm running that engine. I've got the Weeping Willow, which needs to tick a certain amount of times. I've got my Hawker Smugglers, which need to boost my hand. I always felt like I was wasting a card. I had too many things that needed to keep ticking. So, yeah, anyway, that's like a rambling way of saying I think Vitality and Bleed is pretty awesome. And yeah, Spyro, if you have something you want to say about one of those things, shoot.
Yeah, I think they're very interesting because they both have counters. Like, so the counter for bleed is, as monsters has access to this a lot. Like monsters, if you get something bleed and you consume it with brewers, you can't suddenly take away all the bleeding effect. Or you play Cyclops, you throw the bleeding card at your opponent, and then you obviously negate that bleed value. Many times I've played against monsters, I've given them bleed, and they just play Cyclops on their bleeding unit, and then I lose all that value. So bleed gets countered quite heavily by monsters running either brewers or Cyclops, or whatever. And obviously, Vitality gets countered by, if you can kill that card before it's finished getting its Vitality, you get extra value. So if you play like a Wild Hunt Hound, let's say someone plays like an Obelisk and they put Vitality on for 3 turns, and you play Wild Hunt Hound, you kill that Obelisk. Suddenly you're playing a Wild Hunt Hound that's worth 9 points for 5 provisions, which is really good. So both Vitality and Bleed have their counters. I think obviously Vitality is biggest counter, obviously removal, and then Bleed's biggest counter is mostly monsters, but ways to like consume or destroy your own units. That obviously negates the bleeding effect.
Yeah, like when I see a unit that has 5 Vitality on it, it's like, okay, well, this is essentially now Lyrian Cavalry that's going to trigger for 5 straight turns. So I need to treat it. I need to treat it like that. Would I remove an engine at this spot? King, what do you think about these abilities?
So I think Vitality and Bleeding are interesting concepts. However, I think as the meta evolves and stuff, I do think these are a little weak. As Spiro's pointed out, with Bleeding, you can stop it with consumes. You can stop it with destroying it and throwing at other things. Skellige also has ways of dealing with it, right? Because they have they self wounding a lot, so you just wound these things down and kill them. You don't mind wounding something that's already dead to bleeding, right? You don't mind, it's free self wounding and that sort of stuff. And as far as Vitality goes, Vitality is probably slightly better, but again, you can kill it and stuff. But the other counter to these things is the pass, right? You can pass it. They play for 0 tempo to assert, like they're not tempo plays, so they're very hard to find to be able to play in round 1 and 2, because they're low tempo plays. You're generally playing a card that is below provision cost, that gives these sort of abilities, which means that they're very low tempo, which means you are in danger of being passed on. And also, like, when you're getting bled, these cards become very bad. So I think as the meta evolves and people learn how to play around these cards, people will realize that they're actually a little bit weaker than they seem. But again, they like counter each other really nicely. I do like the subtle way that the Vitality counters Bleeding, right? By like taking it down. If you've got 6 Bleeding and you give it 5 Vitality, it goes to 1, that sort of stuff. That's pretty cool. And they are very good in long range 3s. They are other engines in long range 3s. But I do think there is some good counter play. I don't think that they're super strong. I think maybe I think shields are probably more viable than Bleeding and thing. But I might be wrong. There might be some solid strategies that come forward, but right at this very moment, I'm not.
It's like the idea that I'm giving another unit that doesn't have this ability to be an engine, and that makes it threatening. However, it is true that if that unit is destroyed, it's like you have a little indicator, like how much value am I going to get if I remove this? Exactly what that number says, because it's going to go away. And when that number hits 4 or 5, it's really tempting just to say, well, I know exactly that this is it's not about how many times this engine can proc. It's that it's procking this many times, no matter what my opponent does at this point. So you could say that you have the ability to give these cards the ability to be the best engine, an unconditional engine, like Mahakam Guard, like Magni Division. So, well, not really Magni, but like Mahakam Guard, sort of like once it's going, it's going. Like Eskel Pathfinder, it's going. So set it and forget it. And I think I like that about that. I think that Bleed is also interesting in that when you play Bleed on a unit, you're also not playing a unit, so it's kind of like you're like playing a mini Mastercrafted Spear. You get these instances of damages and pings on this unit that you want. You're not developing your board anymore. I feel like with monsters, there's probably more fun stuff you can do with Keltullus and Ice Troll, because you have 2 Bleed cards you can play that are special cards that are both organic cards. Like there might actually be something there that I just really want to try that. Quill, how do you feel about those abilities, Vitality and damage? And if anybody wants to add something about poison in the next little bit, we can too, just so we can kind of just cover everything, because I feel like we don't need to talk about resilience or anything like that, or lock. We know about those things.
So I kind of want to touch on something you said just a little bit, or just right before we started kind of going into it with scoia'tael and it becoming more important with your sequencing and what time you lay these cards, because you want to lay them at a certain time. And I really like how they're adding more stuff into the game that really either punishes you or rewards you for sequencing. Kind of like how NR was. It felt like it was the main faction for that would get either hurt a lot or you know for their sequencing plays at the beginning of Homecoming. NR felt like that's why it was so much harder to play than other factions. Now that you have like a thrive in basically every faction, like with Harmony, as you were saying before, and assimilate as well in Nilfgaard, it feels like they're adding a lot more stuff that makes sequencing a much bigger thing. And alongside bleeding and vitality, also you got to know when to sequence those and when you have the tempo to be able to play out some bleed. It's kind of what like KingChezz was saying, was that they're essentially zero or very low tempo plays. You got to know when you're enough points ahead of the opponent to be able to lay those, and when you think they're actually going to be able to pass to get the most out of that bleed or vitality.
Right on.
So,
all right, rapid fire. Poison. KingChezz, I'm going to talk to you about Nilfgaard real quick, as we saw the Rot Tosser change. Now the cow, when it detonates, it now poisons the units next to it, which gives a little bit more relevance to the new Fangs of the Empire card we saw late in the reveals. A card, the 4 provision card, 3 strength, poison a unit, which seemed very out of place for Nilfgaard. Still doesn't have, one extra poison card. scoia'tael only has 2 poison cards as well. 3. That's a lie. They have Mantis Trap. So is it possible that Nilfgaard is missing 1 extra poison card to flesh this out? Maybe Viper Witchers might actually kind of make sense. There are alchemists as well, but how do you feel about poison in Nilfgaard? I think I know what you're going to say. First of all, do you care about the Rot Tosser change? Like the fact that Rot Tosser is now just gone, that problem is solved. Like the red coin tosser, I think it was called coin tosser.
Coin tosser, yeah. Well, I mean, it seems to be a general theme with Nilfgaard, right? They get something that's pretty good: Magni Division, Rot Tosser. I mean, those 2 are the 2 that spring to mind immediately, because they haven't had a lot of other really good things, and they get
nerfed.
Arbalest
and Recruit as well, but that's Reveal, and we don't like Reveal.
Oh yeah, Reveal as well. Reveal was very strong, and that got nerfed, and it seems to be a recurring theme. As far as the change to Rot Tosser, I actually think it's possibly better now, because the problem with Rot Tosser when they moved it up to 7, right, was that it was just you would never run Rot Tosser over Master of Disguise, right? Master of Disguise was just a better card for tool removal. I guess Spy Synergy would be a reason you'd run a Rot Tosser over Master of Disguise, and obviously now Assimilate. But I think the change to Rot Tosser now brings it back to being potentially playable, because it's a 1 bigger body,
it's
right?
It's 5 provision, 3 strength, yeah.
Yeah. So it's got 1 bigger body. It's 2 provisions cheaper, which is nice. That's back to what it used to be, and it's now back to the old Rot Tosser, but you need to have set it up. It's not just, it can't just kill you immediately, right? You have to have set it up by running another bad card. I could see that synergy being something that Nilfgaard could actually abuse. I actually think that could easily be abusable. But the problem is that, like, it's the guy that gives poison right now isn't very good, and like you said, there's no other cards that give poison in Nilfgaard, so you'd have to run a bad card and then hope that you draw both of them in round 1 and be on good coin. It just seems a little tough to get actual value from. But I think Rot Tosser itself is a good change, and I would like to see more poison in Nilfgaard, because it definitely seems like something they could do, right? They're filthy Nilfgaard people who are always doing naughty things and
hiring
tricks.
assassins
I think
and stuff like that. Yeah,
So I think poison, like a poison strategy, could work really well, and I think Rot Tosser is going to be a strong card if poison is good. So I think the Rot Tosser change was nice. The 3-point dude who gives poison isn't very good, but I mean, he does activate your Rot Tosser, so he is necessary right now. But with more poison cards, I think Rot Tosser could be good. Yeah, I quite like it.
It's interesting because
I like
Rawtosser is an assimilate card that's also a poison card, but it's you
Mhm.
need to run more poison, I guess, to make the poison really feel like it's paying off.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
as an assimilate card by itself, it's not that strong. It's proccing, but it's just 3 points
Mhm.
by itself in that case if you're not really proccing it. So there
Mhm.
is that. And when I saw the reveal video by the person who revealed Menagerie Keeper, it was like Slave Driver plus Panther equals Menagerie Keeper. Wouldn't it be awesome if Menagerie Keeper, that instead, if you had a tactic in your hand, it just spawned a panther that gave bleeding. Like it played Slave Driver and then put the like the art for Menagerie Keeper as the panther that gave the bleeding, but it also created a
Mhm.
card outside of your deck. So then you would have tactic assimilate and then you'd have
Mhm.
poison assimilate. But like more,
Yeah.
it's hard, right? You want to make a card that creates a card or spawns a card. You need to have the card that it's spawning make sense. So for Rawtosser, that's always made sense. It's always been such a cool
Yeah,
concept
yeah,
in
yeah.
art and execution, and what it's always done has been thematic. And now it actually seems to make the most sense, even though I feel like it's in its weakest iteration. So I just think that the card itself is a really cool concept and idea, and I like that they gave it 2 new
For sure.
identities, but I feel like it's just a little on the weak side. That's my take on poison. Yeah.
But I'd have to
Go ahead,
agree.
Square.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with that. The one reason I think that the mechanic itself can be weak is it's kind of similar to if you looked at Van Hemar plus
Yeah,
Lock.
yeah.
It requires something that requires a 2-turn setup, and your opponent can see coming. Gives your opponent the opportunity to react, and one of the easiest ways to react is you pass. So let's say you play, I don't know, Spear Tip, the 12-point Spear Tip, and you're playing in round 1, and your opponent plays poison on it. You obviously, what your initial reaction is, well, I can just pass, and then because your opponent can see it coming, and because it takes 2 cards set up, it's very vulnerable to just being passed on. It can be good in a round 3. In a round 3 where there's no longer the opportunity to pass, and your opponent kind of just has to deal with it, then it can be pretty decent if you can but then you still need a tall
Yeah.
body to remove. Otherwise, even then, it's not going to find the value. I think it's a bit situational, and I think that the two turn setup can be very difficult. Now, if there's a way to do it in 1 turn, if there's ever ways where you can set up in 1 single turn, you can set up like double poison in 1 turn.
Comfy.
Counterpoint though, remember Menno Cohorn Infiltrator? You set the spying and then you kill it. I mean, you guys can probably. I'm just remembering it now, and there's probably like a really, really good reason why this is different than Vanamar. But I just wanted to throw it out there. That was a 2-turn setup that was devastating every fucking time. Now, Infiltrators were also very strong bodies at the time. Menno was like fail proof. You always could get it. It's different now, but Vanamar and locking feels very similar to creating spying status and killing spying status with Menno. And but I will say that all the poison units, Rawtosser, and I think that the harmony ones that give poison are the really annoying ones for me, because you don't want to poison early, but you don't want to harmony late. That one just drives me nuts. And also the Forest Whisperer, that one is probably fine because it has it's a modal ability. The other ability that the Forest Whisperer has is also give a shield. So there's a little bit more there that you can work with. But it feels like you have to play. It forces you to play poison on early engines, and then those units. I mean, you kind of get it back in the Dryad because it has harmony, so you're going to get that value later. But I feel like where poison is the most deadly is when you can absolutely control where it goes, like a late Menno of old. Quill, do you think that poison is just too slow? Do you think that the potential, like for me, I think the potential is like too powerful to make it better. I'm scared of the effect if it was a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I agree with both Spiral and Chez here. So he said Spiro was saying like round 3, it can get better, but then you're carrying 2 low strength cards into 2 low strength bronzes into round 3 to potentially, kill a spear tip. And then, it's good against monsters, but they have so many throws, eats that they can, sometimes even deal with it too.
I killed a Goliath this way yesterday. He shielded the Goliath. I'm like, no. I killed the Goliath, got Polly out of my deck. And then there was the forfeit. That's actually that exact scenario happened to me yesterday. Yeah, and continue.
But yeah, it just seems like, because you want them in round 1 on just like old coin tosser on red, but then there is the issue of just them passing. I mean, it can get you the round as Nilfgaard, which is nice because you often find it hard as Nilfgaard to take round 1, at least in a lot of cases where I was playing them, this season and last season. Like I found out a lot of the strategies were just, play 3 bad cards and pass, and then hope you survive the bleed. was, how Nilfgaard was panning out for me last patch, which it was so unfun to play. And I feel like since not much has changed, it's going to be a lot of the same. Play out 3 bad cards and hope that you can survive the bleed a card up.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of that in Gwent Open as well. I mean, so many Morvrands with so many great hands with all 3 Witchers and Unicorn Karnaks, and that's just how it was. You just go into that late round with like the hand that you think just has more points. And that is fundamentally what Gwent should be about in a lot of ways. You just like, my hand has more points in this many cards than my opponent. I believe that, and that's why I'm making these decisions. Nilfgaard really strips that bare, though. It's like you don't really get like the layered nuances and the complexity that I feel like we're seeing in a lot of the other factions. I will say that I actually have enjoyed all the Assimilate I have played. I have enjoyed it. It has been a lot of fun. And competitively, I haven't even thought about trying to do it competitively. So much like most dreams, like my dream about the endless Eridan fleet using Wild Hunt Navigator to bring out Necker Warriored longships in Vintage Gwent and just playing like ship after ship after ship after ship. That was my dream deck. I always tried to make it work, and it never worked, and it never will. And sometimes your dreams just can't become reality. But I feel like Assimilate really had, when you have an expansion kind of backing it, like a lot of this stuff came out with like base set stuff. And, if it worked, and it didn't. Like Queensguard, it worked really well, and then it didn't. And stuff like that kind of came and went. But now the expansion is like, here's all this new stuff we have for you. And I think that Assimilate should be, like, I like Assimilate. I think Harmony is good, but I like Assimilate. Assimilate could be good. It could be better because Harmony, I think they nailed it. I think that they nailed it in deck building and the interest, the threatening nature of the engines. Waters of Brocklin creating 2 extra engines that have this ability on it, whereas Nilfgaard has nothing like that outside of, I guess, Artorias. But it's not. I guess Artorias is the answer. But I feel like Waters of Brocklin is just a little bit more reliable. What I'm trying to say is that I think the universal additions to Gwent, like Assimilate, like Harmony, those are great. Like where you can see every card potentially, more so in scoia'tael and in monsters. You start to see all of the cards get value for you in a long enough round without having to have these specific shoehorn things like Lyrian Arbalest and Cavalry that need orders specifically. Where that works with Northern Realms, keywords are nicer. I think keywords are nicer. Last thing I want to talk about real quick is Dettlaff Higher Vampire. Apparently, people are saying this card is really, really, really strong. For or against Dettlaff Higher Vampire, are people right or wrong when they say this card might be OP? KingChezz, what do you think?
It's 100%.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of points you can get from it are just too strong. It's just very, 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 very good, right? People have started to run Caranthea for Higher Vampire. Like Caranthea has never been meta because it just doesn't work.
A card
right?
like this to break.
Yeah,
honestly.
Exactly. He's been waiting for a card that he can abuse, right? And he's got one. This card is really, 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 really abusable and strong. Having said that, right, I've built my scoia'tael deck to run 2 counters simply for Dettlaff Higher Vampire, and I was speaking to Saber about it, and he thinks that even with these 2 counters, it's not enough. You're going to need some more against a very top player who knows what deck list you're running and plays around these counters, and he's probably right. But on ladder so far, the 2 counters have been doing their job. But I think as far as the card goes, it's probably the strongest card in the set, and it is very, 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 very strong.
Like if you have Ethna and Regis Bloodlust and maybe like a Northern Wind or something to do the banishment or something, you can control the pings and you can kind of control that death blow effect. But that's one and locking it. But I mean, Purify. I mean, it's like Greedy Consume of old, right? You just you tech in the tech against you, because if like Consume of old, if you could get there, you would win. So you had all these things that prevented you from losing. You had what is it, Merlorn bring out the extra Necker. You had just so many ways of just having this fail-proof point shitting strategy that was just like, and I saw it over like a year of competition. If you could handle the tech, it made it survivable because you could tech against it on the ladder. You bring a Mandrake, you just cruise through it. But in the tournament setting, it was very, very clear that there was a problem with that archetype. Spyro, are you on the 100%? Did you say 100% OP, Spyro? Sorry.
I think that the bullet temper vision card. I mean, yeah, a 10 provision card for 20 points is pretty double the value on its provisions is pretty nuts. So I think that it definitely needs to be tuned. The question is how. I like the fact that it comes back 3 times due to the fact that it is lore friendly. I don't know if anyone's played. If you played The Witcher 3, you'll know why it's lore friendly. Coming back 3 times. So I don't think they should. If they're going to change, I don't think they should make it come back less times. Because I have seen people say, just make it come back 2 times or whatever." I think they should maybe make it 4 points. 4 points coming back 3 times might be more balanced. It's still a lot of points, but I mean, you see, like Jay said, people running Karante even for it. I mean, you can even go a step further. And you can run Whispering Hemlock to get it.
Exactly.
You can go.
Yeah.
You can.
So many debt laughs.
You can just eat it over and over and over.
I try not to mention that, right? Because people haven't seemed to have noticed that.
This is the first thing I thought. If you Whispering Hemlock debt laugh,
just running Karen.
I actually had like the stupidest. It was like such a dumb. I felt like it was a dumb kind of fanboy question, but I was just like, "Ooh, new card, new mechanic. Need to ask this." Somebody in my chat actually asked it, and I think it was an interesting question, but. If you Hillock Dettlaff and Dettlaff, all the charges go away and it actually sits in your graveyard, is there a way to get it out of the graveyard with the other Dettlaff? And I was promptly told that it would not work like that. But that doesn't change the fact that Whispering Hillock on Dettlaff makes 2 Detlaffs. And Karen Theory makes a 3rd Dettlaff.
Yeah.
And, well, you don't renew Dettlaff because he never really goes to the graveyard useful, but at least at least you can't renew him, I guess is the one thing. Quill, how have your Dettlaff encounters gone? Dettlaff Higher Vampire?
I'm actually the Dettlaff player.
The Dettlaff player. You're the problem, not the solution.
I've been playing it with Unseen Elder. I've been bleeding and then using Karen and Dettlaff in the last round. The Karen becomes like a 19 finisher or whatever. It's 24 points and 2
you can
cards.
Protect it with Aridin too, I guess.
For 19 provisions.
Protect Karen and then play Dettlaff.
Yeah. But I've just been finding it just super strong of a finisher, and just for it's cheap on its provisions for the 2 cards. I'm not sure I agree with the whole Whispering Hillock thing. I've been seeing a lot of people running it in their streams, and they've been missing the Hillock a lot. It's just been kind of awkward to play out, especially if you don't, draw your combo pieces, because it is a combo piece oriented deck. And I've been running it in Death Wish because Karanther is at least really good on a Harpy Egg. It can be okay on a Rat Fiend.
Good on K-Ran too sometimes.
So you have other targets for it.
Because you can play the K, you can start eating right away. Yeah. So I actually have liked you in the past where I've just been messing around with some of these cards. I always had my eye on Karen there. I thought this effect is I'm just waiting for a card, and this is a pretty strong one. And I think that the counters like most cards with powerful effects, I think that I was looking at Sciana the same way, and maybe Quillandlance combos. With a powerful effect, there's the memes, and then there's the stuff that, oh, wait a minute, we can make this work, and it's really scary. So the thing about maybe Whispering Hillock not working so well, if you're also running Karen Theory and maybe like a bunch of other ways you're trying to copy, sometimes it's, it's just expensive card. I feel like you'd probably want to be running stuff that cares about organic cards, which there are a few things, but I think that the memery stuff, like Whispering Hillock, might fade away, but that won't change the fact that Dettlaff is getting you so many points. And Hubert had a couple of weird ways you could play it, and that just came down to you could play Ada, but you could just play Meave and just have a bunch of engines and get your Hubert to be 3 times as big as just playing the final combo. That's why even Herald, I feel like Herald the Cripple, has receded, because it's your combo is really awesome with your leader, but these other leaders can make these crazier combos over 2 or 3 turns that can't even stand up to this stuff. So I think that Dettlaff, when I saw Sciana, I thought that's the card that maybe we should watch out for, but Dettlaff quickly became a fan favorite / hated villain. He is a villain, so although it makes sense, right? What are we at here? We're at the top of the hour here. I want to open this up to the chat. If you have any questions for these players, we have KingChezz, the Challenger Qualifier, Spiro, streamer from South Africa, and we have Quill as well. Always great to have some of these players back. Great to have Spiro on for the first time. All streamers, all play a lot of Gwent, all have community viewpoints because they have their own communities as well. So should be able to answer any question you have. Throw those questions out. I will think of a good one right now as I just jump into the community transition, and I'll see you on the other side, my friends.
is it worth playing 2-point cards with Dettlaff and Dryads around? It depends. I think that monsters, if you're playing monsters, the old Thrive package with like Drowners and Neckers and whatnot are very vulnerable now, because if you queue in with a deck that has a bunch of Drowners and Neckers and you queue against Dettlaff, you're gonna Dettlaff's leader ability trades so significantly to Thrive engine cards. Any engine card basically that can be damaged by not even 2-point cards, can be even 4-point cards. Any card that can be damaged and set into Dettlaff range just gives the leader ability such extreme value, because Dettlaff in a vacuum is worth basically, it's worth 6 points. When it's comboed onto killing enemy units at 2 points, it's worth 12 points. When it kills an engine card and it gets its Ekimaru or whatever, it can suddenly be snowball to like a 20-point leader easily. So it kind of depends on the meta. If there's a very Dettlaff heavy meta, I think running 2-point like engine type of cards, like Thrive cards, can be almost too risky to run. But it kind of depends on how the meta settles and how popular some of these cards become. But in the current set where everyone's trying out like Dettlaff and whatnot, it can be very risky to run cards like Drana and Neckers and etc.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I think that the leaders that function well with Deathblow are also naturally good against these things. So, like, Ethna is also naturally. I mean, not that you're going to play Ethna early to kill Neckers, but you have the ability to customize your Deathblows. And before I get to this next question, I just want to thank once again the patrons at patreon.com/commandershorn. Our commandos over there. Thanks so much for keeping the lights on, keeping the podcast going, and as we go right into our first expansion. Spiro, what time is it over there, by the way? I just realized that it's probably pretty late for you, right?
For me, it's only it's not that late.
Oh,
only
it's only
8 o'clock.
Oh, for some reason I thought it was much later.
Yeah.
I always forget about the geography of South Africa. I always think I know. I'm still getting to know Europe. I still don't even know like where all the countries are in Europe.
It's similar to UK time. It's similar time zone to Europe.
Right on. So Deathblow I think is pretty cool. Here's a question coming in from Jamoni. We know that some sort of Nilfgaard rework is somewhere on the horizon, as developers have said live that they are not happy with Nilfgaard, where Nilfgaard is. This was before the expansion, so it's possible that some happiness may be restored and their editing can be somewhere else specifically. But the question continues from Jamoni. What do you think should be reworked, buffed, or kept the way it is in the game? I'm just going to start this one off and say that I think that I would love to be moving forward as much as possible, but I do understand that there are some sort of relics of kind of the transition to Homecoming that could feel just a little bit better. I think that there was, an idea that Reveal would be this archetype that would work the way it works and everybody would enjoy it. But I think that that's just not really the case. So I think Reveal obviously is probably a sore spot for Nilfgaard. But then outside of that, I mean, maybe a little bit more pirate ship stuff for Skellige, but I think the game's in a really good spot. I don't know, King, do you feel like the game is lacking in any spots that could be a little bit touch up?
So, what I would like to, the one I'd like to look at as a great case study is scoia'tael, right? When the game first launched, it was just control, just full-on control. That was all you could do in scoia'tael, was murder everything, play basically no units, just murder the board with artifacts. Then they got rid of artifacts, and then you just murder the board with elves, right? You just murder everything. And as time's gone on, and especially with this new Crimson Curse expansion, scoia'tael now has a lot of different things it can do. It's not just murder everything. It can still murder things, still pretty good at murdering things, but it's got lots of other cool things to do. It's got like the hand buffy stuff. It's got traps, which is murdering things, but in a different way. And it has the harmony package and stuff. It's got lots of different cool things you can do, right? Whereas Nilfgaard started off with some cool tools, and they took it all away from them, and now they've just gone, here's some mid-range stuff, and they just keep printing mid-range gold cards, right? Like you got your Orc, Serit, then they added Letho. Now they've added the two other cards that do things together. The one that you deal 1 damage, and then if you've got the other one in hand, it deals 2 damage to the guys adjacent. Or you deal 2 damage and give the 2 guys next to you shields or whatever. Like they just keep giving them more mid-rangey cards that do the same thing, and they've just got a million of these cards. But there's no like place, there's no like archetype, like actual archetype, right? It's just run mid-range, good value cards. And I think that's what Nilfgaard needs. It needs some sort of archetype, because there just isn't an archetype, right? When we're prepping for tournaments and stuff, when we come to Nilfgaard, it's, do you want to play multiple horn Nilfgaard, which isn't really an archetype, right? It's just playing Horn a bunch of times, or do you want to play mid-range
Yeah.
control? There's no archetype.
Seems like the more
particularly
extreme
that
way
you
that
look to do.
tactics would have looked at. Like we all knew Commander's Horn and would matter for Nilfgaard because it's a tactic. They have Menno that pulls tactics. Like we knew that Horn would be a thing,
Sure.
but playing Horn 3 times probably was less about it. Probably more about like having a whole deck that's built around tactics. So at least we have that. I think the tactics are there. I think that if Viper Witchers were at all good cards in anything that they did that was fun for any side that was playing it, I think that Witchers would actually be like a very realistic archetype for Nilfgaard because they have so many faction Witchers. And I also think that Soldiers just needs a little bit more interest, a more intrigue, like the way they do, the way like Vreemd is there, slave infantry, the like they could just need to give a little bit back to what we loved about Soldier Nilfgaard. And I say we, you and me, KingChezz, but also we, general population who actually enjoyed playing that deck. I don't want Viper Witchers back. I don't think alchemy needs to be a thing. I don't want that kind of like that sort of control, but I think that the soldier stuff was really good. Spies look like it's kind of clawing its way back, and it might actually be there. I don't know yet. I don't know if they need another engine. I don't know if like too many engines is the problem. There's obviously a lot to talk about there. I don't know. What do you think about Quill? I want to just ask Quill real quick what he thinks about what could be updated in the base set, or if you're more or less happy with how things are.
As someone who doesn't really play scoia'tael and needs a fourth faction, I am kind of unhappy with Nilfgaard. Yeah, I do think they need something. I'm not sure exactly what it is. If it's a newer, different archetype, or just actually getting revealed to work without it feeling bad for one of the players. Because that was what everybody hated about reveal before, is it felt terrible for one of the players.
Always.
And they just need to. I really don't know how it works, because I feel like what they had for reveal before is just going to end up being the same thing, or it's just going to be underwhelming, whatever they do with it. So I feel like a whole new thing is on the horizon. I would love to see spies come back, and actually be strong, other than just kind of, because right now it seems like it's kind of in that middle of that meme state almost, where it's just like, oh, let's see how many enforcers we can play with Ardal. Let's use Operator. Let's use 10 other cards to see if we can get like 20 enforcers on the board, and maybe one of those will stick, because they're just so easy to kill. Even like I had this one round where I was against Pronio, and chat was all scared because they knew what deck he was playing.
What was he playing?
They're like, okay, he's gonna play out like. He was playing Ardal with enforcers, and so he got a long round 3 on me. But I had 2 Cyclopses, I had a Wispess. Every single one of those enforcers that just hit the board just went away instantly.
This is classic tempo versus control, or mid-range control, I guess, in a lot of ways that these pings are working. I feel like hard control doesn't have enough points, but mid-range control has enough counters to engines that it just seems very safe to play, especially since so many engines were introduced to the expansion. There's one last question here coming in from Brazar, saying Francesca needs good special cards and Ardal needs good tactics to be strong leaders. Is this current expansion helping them, I think is what he was trying to get there. I do believe that Ardal is absolutely helped. I think that leader is Anna's a very good leader, but I personally think Ardal is the strongest leader right now, just because of how common engines are and how you can turn that around. And if you were playing an ability twice, I'd want Ardal's more than Anna's, if Damien is something you wanted to work in. And I just think that the potential for Ardal to absolutely just mess with your opponent is just you have to play around Ardal a little bit more out in the open than you have to play around Anna. Anna still doesn't really know what's going on. Ardal really has a more can put more foresight into how his ability is going to be used. Spiro, what do you think about Ardal's power level right now, and do you think that Francesca has a hope in hell?
So I'll start with Francesca. So for Francesca to be good, there's been obviously a lot of new special cards that have been added, but none of them have been, with the exception of maybe Crimson Curse, which is not a monster, which is not a scoia'tael card, which Francesca can't make use of. But Francesca wants a very, very powerful special card to get its value. So something like Commander's Horn, however, or even previous Commander's Horn, the problem with you couldn't run Francesca's command as well because you couldn't get enough bodies on the board because scoia'tael didn't have a card like Harold Housestad, for example, which can put a bunch of bodies on the board. But ideally, you'd like Francesca needs like a card that can like swing for like 12 to 15 points for her to see any amount of play. And right now, the special cards we did see, although all of them are very, very good, they're not at the power level that would justify using a leader ability just to replay that special card. So in the current, however, that being said, I still think Francesca is one of the strongest leader abilities in a vacuum. In just a vacuum, her leader ability is insane. We're just waiting for the right card to be added to the game, and then Francesca will. I'm very sure Francesca will see the light of day, and she will become like one of the strongest leaders in the game. Just not in this current time and space.
I tried playing Waters of Broccolon with Francesca, so I'd have 2 engines in whatever round I wanted to go into, and it felt quite strong, but it didn't felt justified for the 13 provision cap, like what I was actually using Francesca for. So, if I could, I mean, it's still Waters of Broccolon is still like an expensive card, and it still does, putting 2 engines on the board is a pretty strong ability, and I think that, with Neckers and with Henselt in some situations, letting Northern Realms get 2 engines on the board in the first place is always very scary. Artorias Vigo putting 2 assimilates on the board, like all that stuff is, I think that's always going to have a place in a meta, but I think with mid-range control, it's going to be harder to make that work. But yeah, Francesca Waters of Broccolon, I don't know if it's good, but I've been trying it, and I think that it's a fun deck to mess around with early.
I mean, it can be good. It can be good in some situations. It's not like it's completely unplayable. But I just think there's better alternatives at the moment. And
what if they gave Francesca a bunch of really cool nature cards? Maybe they even like made some modifications to some of the things that are available to scoia'tael, and then limited Francesca's card type. But I mean, that's the thing, right? If you take the Francesca's ability is very exciting because every special card matters to her. If you limit her, then, it's just less exciting. Deck building is less interesting. You could make her provisions higher, which means it would make her more fun to play or more digestible to test with. But at the same time, it makes her less interesting, I think. I guess this is the last thing that I'm going to throw out there. Do you feel like an ability like Francesca's, Eridan's was removed for a different reason because it was unhealthy currently, as well as, I mean, like when you, let's see. Do you guys think that leaders being as universal as Francesca would ever pose a problem to future design? Do you think that it's realistic to think that Francesca might see a change? It's a weird leader to talk about. I mean, there's probably lots of other leaders, like Henselt also has, implications that maybe not as extreme because it's always a bronze. Well, no, it's not always a bronze card. Actually, there are. It could be any card that has a duplicate in it. But how do you feel about the power level of leaders in general? Francesca kind of being the talking point. I'll throw it to KingChezz and I'll throw it to Quill, and then we're going to wrap it up here for podcast 113.
All right, so Francesca is actually one that I had a lot of experience with. I actually think I played more games with Francesca in one season than any other deck. I actually got my highest ever pro ladder score until last season with Francesca, using like a combo deck that relied on the unicorns, the unicorn package.
Your Francesca
I was running. No. My Francescas were Call of the Forest and Blue Dream, right? So I had Blue Dream for another unicorn. I also ran a Guara True Form so that I could Call of the Forest that into a unicorn.
Oh, the
and I used all that.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah. So I used all that sort of stuff, and I got some really good results. It was quite fun, really, really, really good in a short range 3 because like being able to do that sort of stuff in a short range 3 is insane. Aguara also creates you another special, which was really useful for the thing, and it was really, really fun deck. But at the same time, it was lacking consistency and provisions. Of course, this was back before each leader had provisions, so like it made Francesca a little bit better. Like they weren't it was back when leaders weren't what the provision cap was rated on. So that was it was on the mulligans, I think. So like that was cool. As far as Francesca goes, I think like Spiro said, if they give her some really powerful tools, she will be really strong. Because I think if you go to Arena, she's often ranked as the #1 leader in Arena because her ability is that strong, right? But at the moment her card pool's not good enough. There aren't any things that you can do consistently. Commander's Horn got nerfed. Blue Dream got nerfed, so her
Blue
two
Dream got
main
nerfed
walls
hard.
got
Yeah,
nerfed.
it's like renew quality
Yeah, yeah.
now.
So Francesca, yeah. So Francesca's struggling a lot right now, but as far as design space in the future, she is one that does make it like you have to be very careful with what specials you print for her. Very, very careful, because like if you printed Scorch, like Scorch is like a 14, right? And people can abuse that. Ragnarok, people are abusing that, and like that's right at the tip of like of what she can abuse and stuff. But I think her ability, because it was in Old Gwent with Aithne, it's a really cool,
Yeah, it's
awesome
very Gwenty,
ability.
right? Yeah.
I'd like to see, yeah, I'd love to see it stay. And I guess they just got to be careful with what they print. At the moment, they're doing a good job. I think stopping her from being super super OP is probably a good idea. But I wouldn't be surprised to see her be the number one leader at some point in the
I think
future.
that it's always good to have leaders in the game and cards in the game that always maintain intrigue on possible expansions, possible effects. Like Ardal specifically, like we always knew, anytime a tactic card gets added to the game, we're going to look at Ardal and see if we can make a better list for him. And that's just how it's always going to be with Ardal. And it's how it's always going to be for Nilfgaard. They're always going to have cards that care about tactics and cards that are tactics, because that's just, they have tutors for it and they have cards that care about it. And hopefully they may have more. They have Menagerie Keeper, which is a bit lackluster, Blackfire Scorpion, which is, it is what it is. I've never tried it. But also just in general, there's just a lot of stuff. So I think that, anytime a card, resurrection abilities with Est, or Warrior, or Sigdrief is right, or Freya, like all that stuff, replaying abilities like Whispering Hillock and Renew, especially Renew and Blue Dream as well. All these cards will always keep new effects and new ideas very, very interesting, but they have to be like okay, right? They can't have this play where it's just like knocks you out of the park. Quill, as far as that idea goes, as we want to close this off, how do you feel about generally? How do you feel about the expansion? Do you feel like they added just a nice set of cards? This is such a generic question. I'm going to change this. I think the cards were nice, Quill. Oh my god, that was really. I felt like I almost just. Yeah, they're swell, right? How awesome are they? So awesome. No, I mean, okay, I guess I'm just going to say like. I mean, I could ask the same question back to you because it was the question about Francesca. Do you feel like Francesca and Ardal and cards like that are always going to be interesting as expansions go on? And have you played the Ardal list at all? Or have you played any Francesca since then?
I haven't touched Ardal or Francesca. So it's a little bit hard for me to weigh in. I will say that something that concerns me, and it was kind of with old Ithne, is that they ended up nerfing cards that kind of supported other factions that were neutral, just because of they didn't want to touch Ithne at all. Like we saw that with Commander's Horn way back in beta, where they kind of nerfed that, and that hurt Northern Realms a ton.
Right. And they also, when they nerfed the ability for Nanika to put Commander's Horn back in the deck or something like that, you could do it with special cards. So Stennis could, I can't remember. I think Marching Orders, so you could play Stennis again. There's all sorts of crazy shit you could do with Natalis. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so Natalis was basically not correct. That was a little bit different, but further down the road, I mean, if they release enough scoia'tael specials that actually have some significance, they could just limit it to like this is obviously multiple expansions down the road when we have a huge card pool for her, and they release a lot more scoia'tael specials. They could just limit it to scoia'tael, kind of like how Amir was limited to being Nilfgaard. It might be too bad, it might be just utterly terrible, but it all depends on the card pool looking forward.
Emir's another one,
but that's always something they can do.
It's true, yeah, because they put that limiter on Emir. That same thing that I suggested for Francesca, they actually put that limiter on Emir, but his ability, that ability had some consequences attached to it, I think, for sure. You also said several, this is a conversations that we're going to have for several expansions to come. This is obviously like the worst spot to put it's not breaking news, but like the hottest news. But if you didn't follow Gwent and you wanted to hear, Gwent has confirmed that there are going to be multiple expansions to come, and they've also confirmed they're coming to mobile. What? Finally, it's coming. Just slip that in there as the Crimson Curse came out. It's like, oh yeah, also mobile coming, iPhones later this year. Just sliding it in there, just when you didn't think anything could get any better, there's a future in this year, 2019, year of our Lord Gwent, that we will be playing Gwent on the toilet. My friends, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm super hyped to be able to play
on the
Gwent
toilet.
anywhere
KingChezz
and everywhere,
definitely
right?
playing on the toilet. Spiro, you
Yeah.
playing on the toilet?
On his actual
The actual
throne.
Thronebreaker new expansion. Oh yes. I like. Let's end on.
Oh
let's end
boy,
on
the
the high
toilet
note,
jokes.
yeah. KingChezz, where can people find you when you're streaming? Where can people find you on socials? Where can people find you as you are moving towards Challenger? What are you up to over the next couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me at KingChezz93 at all these different places, both on Twitch and on Twitter. I'm also always hanging out in the TLG Discord if you want to hit me up there. I also have my own Discord if you want to come and chat to me there. And yeah, I mean, I'll be streaming along until Challenger, and then hopefully you'll see me some more on the pro stage, right? When I win Challenger and get my tickets to Gwent Masters.
You know what? The last person that told me that they were going to go to a Challenger in the future was so Green Knight told me he was going to qualify for it to open, and he did. Or I told him that. I can't remember. But it was Andy. The story is about Andy. Andy at Gwent Slam, he said, you'll see me again at Challenger. I will be a Challenger. And he actually did make it to Challenger 4. It was like a year later, but he did do it. So, you know, go in with that confidence. Is make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Spiro,
I mean...
Well, parting shots there, KingChezz. Okay.
No,
Spiro from South Africa. Where can people find you on socials? When can people find you streaming? And where can people find you hanging out?
Yeah, you can just find me on Twitch, Spiro_ZA, and then same on Twitter, except for Twitter has 2 underscores. And yeah, you can basically find me streaming pretty much almost every day at about 11 a.m. CET. Right onwards, and yeah, that's I pretty much stream every day. And yeah, you can also find me on Discord. If you guys have Discord, you can always find me on Discord. I do have my Discord links to my Twitch bio, but yeah, you can find me
also
there.
Just because we are talking to an international audience, I believe we have one more week of the time zone shifted situation where Eastern time is actually 4 hours behind Central European time. So that is just in case you play Gwent and this matters to anybody listening. It sometimes matters when it comes to time zones that the people are throwing out now and a week from now or 2 weeks from now when things realign to this, or 5 hour difference from CET, 6 hours. Oh, whatever. Quillandlance, where can people find you when you're out there streaming, being artistic out there on your stream, or concepting new stuff? What are you up to these days?
You can find me at Quillandlance on Twitch. I try to tweet as often as I can, but Twitter has always been kind of the bane of my existence. But,
so you're out there.
Yeah.
I think you may have just cut out at Quillandlance on Twitter and Quillandlance on Twitch, right? Exactly as it is. Yep. As it is spelt and said. All right, guys, it was great to join you. It was great for you to join me, but also great to join you across the internet today. And a little global reaction for Crimson Curse. Thanks so much for coming on the show, guys. Thanks to everybody in the chat for stopping by as well. Always great to do a podcast, and this has been a fantastic week. This is the first guest-based podcast that we've done in a while because there's Gwent Open going on, Crimson Curse, so much expansion news. I just didn't even know what to do with myself. But I feel like now I can just sit down and play. And I hope you all in the chat, and you three as well, have this renewed lust for Gwent that many people I've seen. Yeah, a lot of faces are coming back. It's a great time right now. I could talk about it all day, but I think this is going to be a good time just to say thanks so much for coming, my TLG friends. Thanks for coming on the podcast and chatting with me about Crimson Curse.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, enjoyed being here.
This will be the outro, so I'll be playing the outro, and then I will be going offline. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks for the chat, and until next time, my friends, this is McBeard. Best of luck on the path.